Starting us off at number 10 is the floating city. On October 7, 2015, in the city of Foshan, China, a rare mirage occurred in which a city seemed to be floating in the sky. This was literally seen by thousands of people. It wasn't just a trick of the light or someone lying about it. The footage literally looks like a city. You can see the blocks of the buildings and it looks like a skyline. The whole incident only lasted a few minutes before disappearing, but it did end up on the Chinese news. Some people believe it was due to a government project that only the elite know about and therefore it was just dismissed as some kind of reflection of some kind, whereas other people believe it's actually Fata Morgana, which basically just means a very superior form of a mirage. Don't know why they have to give it a fancy name. Either way, I don't think a whole city can somehow become a mirage for a few minutes, but I'm also no scientist, so the wildest explanation I read was that it was part of the Blue Beam project, which is a secret project developed by the US, and the point of it is to manipulate the weather and create artificial natural disasters. I don't know why they would want to fake create that. And the mirage they saw was them testing it out to see how the public would react to it. Don't know why they did it in China though, I doubt they did, but there's that too. Coming in at number 9 is the Death Cloud. Back in 2017, residents of Teixeira de Freitas in Brazil saw a menacing sight in the clouds. They dubbed it the Apocalyptic Cloud or the Death Cloud, and the videos literally looks like a red claw has emerged from hell and is reaching into the sky. The whole thing was red and it looked like it was a shadow of a meteor that was just about to hit Earth but then stopped a bit before it did. It dissipated into nothing within 5 minutes, but residents were truly terrified. Someone thought the world was ending, another thought it was going to form a tornado, whereas some people saw it as the work of God and called it perfection. It really is a mixed bag of reactions really. Perfection on one hand, death cloud on the other, whatever you want really. At number 8 we have the Black Ring. Back in 2015 in Kazakhstan, a video was uploaded by someone living in the village of Shortandi, I don't know, the pronunciation wasn't on Google, don't come for me. They captured what appeared to be a giant black smoke ring in the sky that floated there for 15 minutes and then disappeared as smoke usually tends to do. Now this sort of sight has been seen thrice before, once in Leamington but that was due to a fireworks test, another time in Florida but that was due to a pyrotechnic test, and another one in Chicago due to an electrical transformer blowing up. Nice. Either way, after investigation, nothing seemed to have happened to have caused the ring. No fire related activity, no blown up transformer, nothing. People were speculating whether it was the work of witchcraft or perhaps the portal to hell.
The mathematical universe theory. This theory suggests that different mathematical structures represent separate universes. As there are infinite mathematical possibilities, there would be an infinite number of universes. It suggests that our universe is made of pure mathematics, which is bad for me. I failed terribly in math in school. So like a giant cosmic equation, every aspect of our existence, from particles to galaxies, can be described and understood through math. But here's where the multiverse aspect comes into play. The theory proposes that different mathematical structures give rise to different universes, each with its own funky set of rules. So imagine an infinite collection of parallel universes where anything goes in terms of physics and math. In one universe, gravity might pull you sideways, while in another, it might pull you up. So there's a possibility that our universe is just one in an infinite amount. Number 6, the slap. So this one's a little bit different. This is a story posted to Reddit, so you gotta take it with a grain of salt. Who the heck knows if anyone posting stuff like this online is actually telling the truth, or maybe just confused about the things they saw. But skepticism aside, it's kind of a freaky story, and if the multiverse really does exist and can perhaps overlap at times, causing a glitch in the matrix if you will, then who knows. So the story was posted to Reddit by ZJoe12. So one day, a guy had been standing outside his apartment building smoking a cigarette. Unexpectedly, his girlfriend shows up in a taxi. He was surprised but pleased to see her, but she just scowled at him and then slapped him across the face without even uttering a word. And then she stormed past him and entered his building. He followed her to his apartment, questioning her along the way. Inside, she swiftly gathered her belongings, hurling a few items at him before accusing him of cheating, and then she said she never wanted to see him again and left the apartment in a taxi. So the guy's just standing there on the empty street, totally confused, scared, and sad because his girlfriend's just broken up with him. But just moments after the taxi had driven away, he was suddenly embraced from behind by the same woman, his girlfriend. He's very alarmed. He turns to face her, and she greets him cheerfully, totally oblivious to what had just gone on. The guy was completely confused, so he hurriedly rushed upstairs without even saying anything to her. He reaches his apartment and discovers that her bag is still missing. The broken items are still there. The door still wide open. Both of them found themselves utterly bewildered and shook. It seemed impossible that he would have mistaken her for someone else, especially since she was an only child. So yeah, twin theories are out the window. They took a look at the building's surveillance footage, and sure enough, the recordings confirmed his account of following a girl into his apartment, although the camera angles and video quality made it difficult to discern her face clearly. Now, if this is actually true, there could still be a rational explanation, but perhaps this is an instance of a parallel universe colliding with ours for a brief time. Next up, we have the simulated multiverse theory. According to this theory, our universe is just one big computer simulation. Yeah, this is the Matrix one. Maybe this is just a simulation, man. Whoa. And as to who could be running it, the possibilities are endless. Extraterrestrial life, humans from the future running a big ancestor simulation. You could go nuts thinking about this, and if there is indeed one simulation running, there could be numerous other ones running simultaneously, each representing a separate universe. Again, just a theory, one that is, as it stands, impossible to really prove, and at the same time can't be disproven either, so we just don't know, and we may never know. So that's a fun idea. And here's another fun idea. Philosopher Preston Green stated that maybe it would be best for us not to figure this one out, because if we were to definitively prove our lives are all taking place in one big complex simulation, the simulation might end. So once again, this one is just a theory, the daughter universes or many worlds theory. This theory is an interpretation of quantum mechanics and suggests that every possible outcome of a situation or event creates a separate universe. Imagine you're faced with a decision, like choosing between two paths. According to this theory, each choice you make would lead to a different universe branching off from your current one. In one universe, you might choose a path A, while another, you might choose path B. Alright, number 3, we have one of my favorites, the Mandela effect. Oh yeah, everybody's groaning. We've all heard of this one. I still find this one very fascinating though. The Mandela effect as a strange phenomenon seems to mess with our collective memories. It refers to instances where a large group of people remember an event, a fact, or a detail in a certain way, only to discover that's not actually how we remembered it. The term originated from the false belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, which numerous individuals vividly recall happening, despite the fact that he didn't. There are all kinds of famous instances of this for a long time. For a lot of people, myself included, remember the famous line, "Luke, I am your father." Turns out it's just, "No, I am your father." All kinds of examples, and there is a theory that perhaps these collective false memories we have are actually that of some parallel universe that we've split off into, some other timeline and still have remnants of certain memories from the previous timeline. The human brain is weird though, and our memories are not the best source of information, so this one could be totally benign. One of them, for me, I always remember Pikachu. I always thought he had the black bit on the end of his tail, which turns out not to be a thing at all. But anyway. Next up, we have the Vanishing Road. This is another Reddit post, so highly questionable, but still interesting all the same. Posted by Reddit user Padjo95, the story goes as follows. About 4 years ago, I lived in this fairly small fly speck of a town. At the time, I had lived there for about 12 years, so I knew my way around. Our house was about 1.5 miles away from the nearest neighborhood. It was tucked away on a back road with the woods surrounding it. Every now and again, I liked to take walks with my little brother. We headed up the road and decided to try and find a new path or a new clearing that we hadn't discovered yet, when we noticed something a little shocking. Just off the road that led almost directly to the neighborhood, there was a brand new paved road. Every road in that part of town was a gravel road, so seeing an out-of-place paved road was pretty unusual. We came to the conclusion that it must have been made within the last few days, due to the modern but slow growth of the town. However, we had no explanation for how they did it so fast. We decided to explore it a bit. I remember as soon as we set foot on the road, the air became notably colder by at least 5 degrees. It was surrounded by some thick red trees that resembled redwoods, but they were too short and non-native to our state. We walked on the road for about 3 miles until we decided to head back due to it getting dark. At roughly noon the following day, we set back out to explore this place, only to discover that the entire road was now missing. When I say missing, I mean the trees that were cleared to make it had apparently grown back with no sign of the redwood-like trees. We even began to explore the woods once more, but only to find no sign that it ever existed. When we asked our parents about it, they said they knew nothing about any new roadwork being done near us. Alright, and coming in at number 1, deja vu. We've all experienced this. Maybe you're even having a bit of deja vu right now, this very second, because you've heard about deja vu so many times before. But despite how common this phenomenon is, there's never been a definitive explanation for it. The best scientists have been able to explain it is that we're just experiencing something very similar to something that's happened to us before, a memory deep within our psyche that we can't fully recall, so our brain just goes, this exact thing has happened before, your life, it's just one big time loop, repeating over and over again. You get kind of freaked out for about 10 seconds, and then you just go out with the rest of your day, hopefully, unless you just sit there pondering it for too long. But we've never had a definitive 100% true explanation for it, so of course there's all kinds of crazy theories. The common one is that it's a sign we're on the right path in life. Comforting, but not sure how I feel about that one. And of course the theory of the multiverse comes into play with deja vu as well. That maybe deja vu is the result of 2 parallel universes or more perfectly lining up for a brief moment. That a version of ourselves from a parallel universe or universes are in the exact same situation, performing the exact same action at the exact same time. I like that a lot more than the idea that our lives are on this constant repeat and deja vu is just us having this brief recollection of the last time we were on this crazy ride. Yeah, I don't enjoy the thought of being stuck in a never-ending loop. So I'm sorry I left you guys with that idea.
Coming in at number 10 is the waterfall. In the Demerco Dry Valley in Antarctica, a bright crimson 5-story waterfall pours out of Taylor Glacier into Lake Bonny. Now it looks like a gush of from a wound in the ice, but scientists have recently discovered the cause behind this mysterious phenomenon. The water that feeds Blood Falls was once a salty lake that is now cut off from the atmosphere due to the formation of glaciers on top of the lake. The water is preserved 400 meters underground and has become even saltier over time. It is now 3 times saltier than seawater and cannot freeze. Saltwater is also extremely rich in iron and completely devoid of oxygen and sunlight. As the iron-rich water seeps through the fissure into the glacier and comes into contact with the air, the iron oxidizes and rusts, staining the water a dark red color. Now this is just absolutely crazy, but I'm glad scientists were able to find out the reason for this. Number 9. Crooked Forest. The Crooked Forest is a grove of oddly shaped pine trees located in northwestern Poland that is a protected natural monument. This grove of 400 pines was planted in around 1930. Each pine tree bends sharply to the north, just above ground level. Now, it's not all the trees in the forest that do this, as the curved pines are enclosed by a surrounding forest of straight pine trees. It's generally believed that some form of human tool or technique was used to make these grow or bend this way, but the method has never been determined. determined and remains a mystery to this day. It has been speculated that the trees may have been deformed to create naturally curved timber for use in furniture or boat building, while others believe that a snowstorm could have bent the trunks, but there is little evidence of that. Good news is the site is open to the public and serves as a notable tourist attraction in the region, so if you want to check out these weird trees, you can. Number 8. Fire whirls. Fire whirls are also known as fire tornadoes and are absolutely a fire whirl is a whirlwind induced by a fire and often, at least partially, composed of flame or ash. These start with a whirl of wind, often made visible by smoke, and may occur when intense rising heat and turbulent wind conditions combine to form whirling eddies of air. These eddies can contract a tornado-like vortex that sucks in debris and combustible gases. The phenomenon was first verified in the 2003 Canberra bushfires and has since been verified in the 2018 Carr Fire in California. Fire whirls become frequent when a wildfire, or especially firestorm, creates its own wind, which can spawn large vortices. They're usually 10 to 50 meters, 33 to 164 feet tall, and a few meters several feet wide, and only last a few minutes. Some, however, can be more than 1 kilometer, 0.6 miles tall, contain wind speeds of over 200 kilometers per hour or 120 miles per hour, and persist for more than 20 minutes. However, fire tornadoes have been reported to grow as wide as 1,000 feet. Now, a fire whirl can reach up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,090 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that is hot. Now, these sound absolutely terrifying, and I mean, tornadoes themselves are terrifying, but a fire tornado? That's a big nope from me.
Filling our number 7 slot is the Phoenix Light. Back in 2017, a Phoenix City camera, as well as thousands of other cameras owned by normal people, caught sight of something incredible. The whitish bluish fireball can be seen appearing out of nowhere in the sky and hurtling towards Earth as it gets bigger and brighter and then disappears altogether like it was never even there. Now, most people speculated it was a meteor, but many remained unconvinced and looked towards the extraterrestrial as a possible explanation. What do you guys think? Now at number 6 is the Face Cloud. This one happened in 2011 in a place called Grand Falls, which is in New Brunswick, Canada. Dennis LaForge was watering his plants when he looked at the sky and took out his iPhone. The clouds in the video are moving extremely quickly, well quicker than the average cloud would move, and the cloud formation then starts forming a giant face. I kid you not, a giant face. The face gets more detailed as it moves forward, and it almost seems like the face is the thing propelling the cloud forward. The space for eye sockets is visible, a nose, lips, a chin. It's so detailed it's not even funny. People dubbed it the face of God gliding across the sky. The only explanation George Isaac had, who is a senior cloud scientist, was that clouds come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Thank you, George, for that insightful commentary. Even I could have said that, and I'm not a senior cloud scientist. Coming in at number 5 is the UFO cloud. This one was uploaded by YouTube user UFOVNI, who is a Philadelphia resident. Now, we've seen weirdly shaped clouds before, it's definitely not uncommon, but some people believe that UFOs sometimes hide in the clouds to avoid being detected, whereas others go a step further and believe that UFOs can disguise themselves as clouds. I mean, never say never, right? So in this video, there seems to be a random small cloud in the sky, but then as you continue watching, the cloud starts moving and shifting in a really weird way. The cloud seems like it's reflective of light and transparent, and it's moving through the sky with a purpose and a lot quicker than a normal cloud. It's even moving faster than the clouds directly around it. The cloud also had different lights in it, and the user went on to narrate he had never seen anything like that in his life, and after watching the video, neither have I. At number 4 is the cloud wave. Back in 2010, on a beach in Helsinki, Finland, people were enjoying their Sunday off at the beach when they suddenly saw a massive dark dramatic cloud coming right towards them. Now, they initially thought it was a storm cloud, so no real panic had ensued at that point, and I don't even believe it's a storm cloud, to be honest, because I've never seen one so vast and dark and low in the sky. Beachgoers said they felt it was so low they could actually touch it. In the video, it literally looks like the cloud will devour anything in its path, like it's the doomsday cloud. I'm not even kidding you. Birds literally flew out of the way of this cloud because it was that ominous. No explanation given, just a bunch of terrified tanned Finnish people. Filling our number 3 slot is the yellow flash. In November of 2013, over the city of Sverdlovsk in Russia, a giant flash happened in the sky. Now mind you, this was at night, so the sky was pitch black 1 second, and then all of a sudden it went red, then orange, then yellow, and then it expanded and took over more of the sky as it changed color. It lasted mere seconds, but it was unmistakable, and there were no military bases near the area, so explanations involving that or disposing of explosives was ruled out. The next explanation was that perhaps it was a bolide linked to the peak of the Leonids meteor shower, but lights from meteors are usually blue or green or white because of their temperature, so that wasn't it either. Either way, no one knows where the flash came from, but it came and went, and everyone's just gonna pretend like it never even happened. That's brilliant. Let's just continue doing that. Now at number 2 are the fireballs. This one was seen in Canada, and I'm actually speechless over what it could possibly be. It looks like some sort of CGI stuff or some effect of some kind, but it's 100% real. In the sky there seemed to be 2 flaming balls that had constant streams of white smoke coming out the top of them. But that wasn't even the weirdest part. There seemed to be a line connecting the 2 fireballs, but it wasn't a line, it looked like an electricity link of some kind. It was a straight white line with electrical current seemingly coming off of it. They moved straight across the sky on the trajectory of this line, and no one had any explanation whatsoever on what it was, how it got there, or that energy line connecting them both. And finally, at number 1 are the dancing lights. This one genuinely freaked me out when I watched the footage, I'm not even gonna lie. This one took place in Greenwood, Indiana, and Quaid M13 uploaded quite an HD video of it onto YouTube. Now in the video, the sun itself is behind some clouds that you can see very clearly, but on the left of it there's a stream of yellow light that comes and goes and dances in different directions. It's the exact same color and brightness as the sun's light, and honestly just imagine someone trapped a sun ray in a flashlight and then they were just doing this in clouds. That's exactly what it looked like. The video goes on for 2.5 minutes, and the only explanation people have offered is that perhaps it was a crown flash. And crown flash is due to ice crystals in a cirrus cloud merging with the electrical field of a rising cumulus cloud. I never knew I'd know so much about clouds, but now I do. While the field changes, the crystals snap and move, reflecting sunlight in different ways, hence we saw them dancing. Now some people fully believe that this explanation is the right one, and others say that there's no way that that was that. You guys choose whichever explanation you like.
Number 10. Backyard aliens. In late April of this year, Las Vegas police officers investigated reports of 2 unknown entities falling from the sky, and on the same night a nearby resident called 911 to report something 100% not human on their property. According to authorities, a man called 911 to report 2 unknown entities in his backyard after he and his family saw a similar object fall from the sky. The man described the creatures as 8 to 10 feet tall beings that appear to be like aliens with big mouths, big shiny eyes, and added that they're 100% not human. They were looking right at him and his family from their backyard, and he kept clarifying that it was not a joke and that he was terrified of whatever was lurking in the dark. While initially open for several days, the department has since closed the case. The family said officials returned to the home over several days to investigate. Representatives from nearby Creech and Nellis Air Force bases said they were not involved in the incident and suggested contacting the Metro Police. A spokesperson for the Pentagon did not immediately respond to questions regarding this event. So who knows what they truly saw? Number 9. Strange lights. Since the 1940s and possibly even earlier, there have been a strange light phenomenon observed in the Hessdalen Valley, Norway. The spectacle has a form of white or yellow light of unknown origin standing or floating above ground level. Between 1981 and 1984, the lights were observed up to 20 times per week, but have drastically reduced in frequency since then, about 10 to 20 times per year. Now why the decrease all of a sudden? No one knows, and no one knows where the lights come from, but UFO enthusiasts took this as a sign that the valley was a portal to other worlds. Now it wasn't just conspiracy theorists that were interested in this, as the strange bursts of light in the 1980s attracted physicists too, interest piqued by the idea of some unexplained natural phenomenon. In the decades since, scientists have determined the glow likely comes from air turned into plasma, and despite ongoing research and numerous working hypotheses, there is no convincing explanation of the origin of these lights, and it seems like it will always be a mystery. Number 8. cities in the sky. On April 21st, 2017, the citizens from China were awestruck to see an image of a sky floating in the clouds. This phenomena had happened years before in 5 different locations in China, but there was still no clear clarification on how or why this happens. On April 21st, 2017, the citizens from China were awestruck to see the image of a city floating in the clouds. This phenomenon had also happened years before in 5 different locations in China, but there was still no clear clarification on how or why this happens. Some scientists came up with different theories, such as aliens attempting to cross from a different dimension, the second coming of Christ, or is it the image of the holographic test by the Chinese government? Another possible explanation is the infrequent weather event called Fata Morgana, where the light that passes through heat waves causes a duplication effect. However, that seemed unlikely because the image on the sky didn't match the skyline below it.
Filling at number 7 slot is exploding head syndrome. Now before you get too concerned, this one is thankfully nowhere near as scary as it's titled. Now for people afflicted with the syndrome, they are often woken up from a really deep sound to an incredibly loud sound like an explosion coming from either right next to their head, or it kind of sounds like it's coming from inside their head. Now apparently there isn't any pain or danger involved, which I personally find very hard to believe. If I'm woken up because of an explosion next to my head, I would think I would at the very least have a headache. But I guess the body's just weirder than I thought it was. I am not a doctor. Now at number 6 is insomnia, and even saying the word automatically reminds me of the Craig David song, which I know every single word to and will be a lifelong banger. Now insomnia is something that is often taken really lightly by a lot of people, but it can actually be very serious. The longest time that anybody has ever been awake because of insomnia is actually 11 whole days. After even just 3 days, hallucinations can start to appear, so imagine what the this person would have been seeing at day 11. Plus, each year sleep deprivation causes at least 100,000 car crashes and 1,550 deaths. Not to mention the other health issues like high blood pressure that can come as a result of it. So yeah, insomnia is a bit scarier and more serious than not being able to fall asleep until 2 AM, which by the way, Becky, is no big deal. Coming in at number 5 is nocturnal eating disorder, aka sleep eating. Something that in theory sounds great, but in reality can be very dangerous. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, eating while asleep. Being able to eat and sleep at the same time sounds pretty great. Except it's quite dangerous, and not just because it's a major choking hazard, which it is. Now some people who have this disorder are known to use sharp knives or even use a stove or oven when they're asleep, which can obviously lead to some serious injuries. Think of the potential house fires, you guys. Also, something tells me that your sleep self may not be able to tell you not to eat something you're allergic to, so that's just another way this whole thing could go up. And number 4 is narcolepsy. This condition happens when your body is unable to regulate between its sleep and wake cycles, and you just kind of fall asleep anywhere, like randomly. Now just to clarify, this doesn't happen to everyone who has narcolepsy, but it is one of the symptoms. This can be dangerous, of course, namely because people have been known to fall asleep while driving or doing other things that require your full attention. Imagine having narcolepsy and being a surgeon, and then you just fall asleep mid like heart transplant. Actually, they probably don't let you become a surgeon if you're a narcoleptic. Someone tell me, I don't know. Filling on number 3 slot is false awakening. Have you ever had a dream where you were peeing only to wake up to a wet bed? That is, as far as I can tell, the only definition of false awakening, wetting the bed. Which, like, in the grand scheme of things, really isn't that big of a deal. Half of us have wet the bed a billion times growing up, so whatever. But it can definitely be super embarrassing when you're a full adult, and sometimes if it happens regularly to an adult, it can be an indicator of an even bigger health issue. Okay, so TMI now. The last time I actually remember peeing the bed was when I was like 7 and my family and I were on holiday to Thailand, and my sisters were arguing because they both wanted a bed to themselves, but I obviously had to sleep with one of them, and obviously that sister was not happy and then was actually mortified when I then later peed the bed hours later. Now at number 2 is Klein-Levin syndrome, also known as sleeping beauty syndrome, and also not sponsored by Calvin Klein. This to some sounds like an absolute dream, no pun intended. This is when you can sleep for an insane amount of time, and I'm talking like 20 hours a day, and these episodes can last for days or weeks and are also characterized by binge eating, compulsive behaviors, apathy, hallucinations, and childlike behavior. I'm sure we've all had our parents yell at us for sleeping too much, but I'd hope the parents of people with this syndrome are a bit more understanding, considering the fact that this is a bit more than a teenager being lazy. It's actually really hard to live with. Imagine you're in high school and you have a bunch of assignments due, or you're about to study for a final exam a week from now, and then you fall asleep and then wake up 30 minutes before the exam. Like, it's debilitating. And finally, at number 1 is getting beat up in your sleep, even though you live alone. Now this phenomenon has a surprising amount of stories to go along with it, considering the fact that it sounds kind of impossible. But yeah, a lot of people have claimed that they wake up after feeling like they're being hit or punched or beaten up in their sleep, and even have bruises when they wake up, which would suck normally and probably cause a fight between siblings, except these people mostly live alone. Some scientists chalk it up to them flailing around and injuring themselves in their sleep, but even more people think that there's a more supernatural reason behind it. Honestly, anytime I wake up with like a random scratch on my arm or back, I'm like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? And then I realized it was me scratching myself in my sleep. Oopsie. Starting us off at number 10 is sleep paralysis. Now I know you've definitely heard of this one. I feel like we've done countless videos on just sleep paralysis stories alone, but every time I hear the stories of somebody who's gone through it, I get like, you know, like tingly and scared all over. Now sleep paralysis happens when your physical body refuses to wake up, but your brain is still very much active. The paralysis is actually supposed to happen though because it stops us from getting up and acting out our dreams. It prevents sleepwalking, and if you've seen Forensic Files, then you know that you can actually commit a murder when sleepwalking and not even remember you did it. So prevention is freaking important, you guys. But sometimes it just hangs on for too long, and when we're ready to wake up, our muscles just say, nope, not today. Now, the scary part comes from the 75% of sleep paralysis victims who also experience hallucinations. These hallucinations, for whatever reason, are rarely ever friendly. People will often experience a sense of dread combined with a feeling of something sitting on their chest or choking them, and sometimes their brain will feel like having an extra bit of fun and make a demon or something just appear somewhere in the room. Coming in at number 9 is REM behavior disorder, which is actually the exact opposite of sleep paralysis, so it's when your brain is asleep but your body is wide awake. People who experience this have been known to scream, yell, punch, thrash out, and yes, sleepwalk. Sometimes they even run around in their sleep. That is good cardio. Now people who experience this will often remember their dream, but they won't remember the movement associated with it. It's kind of like an out-of-body experience, and unfortunately because the reality their brain is telling them is quite often different than their actual reality, injuries are pretty common with these outbursts. REM behavior disorder is usually more common in adults and can sometimes be a sign of Parkinson's disease, but the sleep disorder can be treated with medication, so I mean, yay. At number 8 we have night terrors. These are a bit worse than your average run-of-the-mill nightmares that you're probably familiar with. Nightmares happen during your deep REM sleep, but night terrors happen pre-REM, which can make them seem a lot more realistic. And as scary as they are for the people experiencing them, the fact that they're not in REM can make them do things that are scary for everyone around them as well. People experiencing night terrors will often sit up in their sleep and scream, yell, or cry, and won't be able to be woken back up or comforted. And they sometimes end up sleepwalking too, which sounds like a terrible combination if you ask me. Now thankfully they only do last between 10 to 15 minutes, so thankfully you likely won't have to lay awake for hours listening to your child scream in their sleep. They'll probably wake up and be like, Mommy, what's going on? And you'd be like, here Jerry, have a glass of milk.
Number 7. Ringing rocks. Ringing rocks are rocks that resonate like a bell when struck. An example of this is in the stones in Ringing Rocks Park in Pennsylvania. Several early scientists became interested in the ringing rocks, however none were able to formulate a credible theory on the ringing ability of these rocks or the formation of the boulder fields. Edgar T. Wary, a mineralogist and bonitist, became interested in the ringing rocks, where he theorized that the ringing was due to the texture of the diabase rocks and that they were supported by other rocks. In 1965, geologist Richard Faz of Lafayette College took a few of the rocks back to his lab for testing. He found out that when the rocks were struck, they created a series of tones at frequencies lower than the human ear could hear. An audible sound was only produced because these tones interact with each other. Although Faz experiments explained the nature of the tones, they did not identify the specific physical mechanism in the rock which made them. Now there's been a great deal of controversy concerning the ringing ability of the boulders, and there has been an almost complete lack of testing to support the conjectures. Conditions such as size and shape of the boulder and the way that the boulders are supported or stacked certainly influence the sounds that the boulder make, but do not in themselves impact the ringing ability. Number 6. Lake Hillier. Lake Hillier is a saline lake on the edge of Middle Island, the largest of the islands and islets that make up the Recherche Archipelago in the Goldfields Esperance region off the south coast of Western Australia. Now, I'm going to state the obvious, it is particularly notable for its pink color. Lake Hillier is about 2,000 feet in length by about 820 feet in width, and the most notable feature of the lake is its pink, vibrant color. Now, the vibrant color is permanent and does not alter when the water is taken into a container, which I think is pretty cool. Now, the pink color is believed to be due to the presence of the organism Dunalinia salina. I hope I said that right, probably not though. Now, the lake itself is safe to swim in too, however, it is not advisable nor allowed without previous approval by the Western Australia Department of Environment Conservation. Now, since 2002, the lake itself has been considered to be a wetland of sub-regional significance. Number 5. The hum. A constant low-frequency sound has been plaguing people around the world since at least the 1960s, from Canada to New Mexico, Scotland to New Zealand. Most who hear it say it sounds like a truck engine idling, and earplugs don't help block it out. Called the hum, it is so well documented that there's statistics about it. It can only be heard about 2% of the population, it is generally present indoors, and becomes louder at night. It is heard more often in rural and suburban areas, and it tends to be heard by middle-aged people. Some doubt the hum is even a physical sound, as in the fraction of cases it may be the result of psychology, with people focusing too hard on ambient noise. But for the most part, the hum appears to be very real. Many obvious sources have been ruled out, such as highway noises, industrial equipment, the electricity grid, and phone towers. Other theories of varying plausibility have been suggested, such as earth tremors, mating fish, power or gas lines, tunneling under the earth, wireless communication devices, and the OG, of course, aliens. Now, a study by geoscientist David Deming of the University of Nebraska suggests that the hum may actually be a result of very low-frequency radio transmissions used by military powers. Other research suggests that the hum comes from natural terrestrial or geological phenomena. It is a well-studied fact that animals seem to be able to predict earthquakes, so perhaps some humans have the same mechanism. All I know is if I had to hear that all the time, it would drive me crazy. Number 4. Milky Sea phenomenon. For hundreds of years, sailors have reported randomly encountering a strange milky cast to the sea as far as the eye can see, but scientists have been unable to explain it or even know for sure if it was real. Now, in 2006, researchers were actually able to capture a satellite image of a Milky Sea, and several years later, experiments discovered the glow was likely from bioluminescent bacteria that attract fish in order to be eaten and survive in their guts. It's billions and trillions in these waters. But scientists still aren't sure how or why the bacteria gather in such large numbers as to be able to be seen from space. Like, that is just crazy. Now, in addition, their glow is continuous, unlike the more commonly seen dinoflagellate organisms that produce brief flashes of light. Number 3. Cave of Crystals. Cave of Crystals is a cave connected to the Nika mine at a depth of 980 feet in Chihuahua, Mexico. It takes the form of a chamber with its limestone host rock of the mine and is about 358 feet long with a volume of 180,000 to 210 cubic feet. The chamber contains giant selenite crystals, some of the largest natural crystals ever found. Now, as someone who collects crystals, I really want to go there. Now, the largest crystal is 37.4 feet with an estimated mass of 12 tons. Now, when the cave is not flooded, it is extremely hot, with air temperatures reaching up to 58 degrees Celsius or 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with 90 to 99% humidity. Now, this is comparable to the temperature records in Death Valley, but with much wetter air. Now, the cave is relatively unexplored because of these factors. Without proper protection, people can only endure approximately 10 minutes of exposure at a time. Now, the cave was discovered in April 2000 by brothers Juan and Pedro Sanchez while drilling in the mine. When the mine workers found it, it became an instant must-see for both researchers and tourists. Now, as of 2015, the mine had reflooded and the cavern filled once more with the water rich in minerals required for the crystals to grow. Number 2. The Blue Hole. The The blue hole is a submarine sinkhole with a maximum depth within the hole of just being over 328 feet. There's a shallow opening to the sea around 20 feet deep, known as the Saddle, and an 85 feet long tunnel, known as the Arch, whose ceiling is at a depth of 181 feet, and whose bottom falls away as about 394 feet. Now the blue hole is popular for free diving because of the depth directly accessible from shore and the lack of current. But this famous dive site is said to have the most diver fatalities in the world. Now the blue hole itself is no more dangerous than any other Red Sea dive site, but diving through the Arch, a submerged tunnel, is an extreme dive that has resulted in many accidents and fatalities. The number of blue hole fatalities is not accurately recorded, but one source estimates 130 divers died during the 15-year period from 1997 to 2012, averaging over 8 per year, and another claims as many as 200. And coming at number 1 is a moonbow. We've all heard of rainbows, but what about moonbows? A moonbow, sometimes known as a lunar rainbow, is an optical phenomenon caused when the light from the moon is refracted through water droplets in the air. The amount of light available even from the brightest full moon is far less than that produced by the sun, so moonbows are incredibly faint and very rarely seen. Now this isn't a new phenomena, oh no. Moonbows were first mentioned by Aristotle back in 350 BC, and there are certain parts of the world where you are more likely to see them, such as Hawaii. Just like daytime rainbows, moonbows need the light from the moon to be reflected and refracted by water droplets at certain angles to create a rainbow. Now rather than seeing the full spectrum of colors, moonbows often appear to be white to the human eye. However, the colors are there, and long exposure photographs are a great way of capturing their beauty. Now the best time to see moonbows is a couple of hours after sunset or before sunrise, and I think it would be so cool to see one in real life.
We're going to kick off this list with cold spots. So back in 2015, astrophysicists in Hawaii discovered a large, barren area in space. It looked as if everything in the area had just been like erased away, a giant black void where 10,000 galaxies should have been. It soon became known as a cold spot, and scientists at Durham University have a pretty interesting theory about this mysterious supervoid, that perhaps this cold spot is the result of a parallel universe colliding with our own, shoving all this energy out of that particular area of space, and that maybe we're just one bubble universe out of trillions. Of course, it's only a theory, but it's a pretty cool idea. And speaking of bubble universes, number 9, bubble universes. According to the theory of cosmic inflation, the early universe underwent a rapid expansion. In this scenario, different regions of space would have undergone independent inflation, creating bubble universes within a larger multiverse. So shortly after the Big Bang, the universe underwent an incredibly rapid expansion, like a cosmic blowing up of a balloon. This is the essence of the cosmic inflation theory. The idea here is that during this rapid expansion, multiple pockets of space-time formed, each becoming its own universe with its own set of physical laws and conditions, and who knows what else. And these separate pockets, like bubbles, could exist as distinct universes with a grander multiverse. So while we go about our lives in our corner of the cosmos, countless other universes could be out there, each with its own unique arrangement of matter and energy. At number 8, we have black holes. So yeah, black holes have been talked about to death, but not by me on this channel yet, so I'm excited to talk about them. Black holes are cosmic bodies possessing a gravitational force that is so powerful that nothing, not even light, can escape from their grasp. They're formed from the remnants of massive stars that have collapsed and are characterized by an incredibly dense core known as the singularity, and the event horizon, the boundary surrounding the singularity, which marks the point of no return, beyond which the gravitational pull becomes overwhelming and you're just getting sucked in no matter what you do. Now, as to what happens to everything that gets pulled into the black hole, that's the question. There are only theories. Some scientists posit that there is no other side of a black hole, while others theorize theorize objects could be, maybe pulled into the future or across time, the quantum loop gravity theory, and then you have the idea that perhaps black holes pull objects in and spit them out in other parts of the universe, or maybe even another universe altogether. There are all kinds of theories, but the point is black holes are just an enigma. Number 7, the hospital ghost. This is a story that was posted to Reddit by user Dr. Basio. Goes as follows. I work as a doctor in a hospital in the UK and was on a night shift that was particularly quiet. Some of the nurses were sitting around telling this story. A young doctor was running to a crash call. Our hospital is a giant L shape, with the front entrance being at the bend. A woman stopped him and asked him which way the exit was. He directed her and kept running. When he got to the patient, it was the woman who had asked him for directions. She had died. Apparently it got caught on the CCTV that the doctor stopped running midway down the hallway and gestured toward the exit while saying something to no one in particular. So supposedly, the confused spirit of this patient who had just died spoke to the doctor, who was racing over to save her life. Pretty spooky stuff. And hey, if there's any place where paranormal stuff like this is gonna take place, it's gotta be a hospital. At number 6, we have one that's pretty similar to the Miss Abigail video. This footage was originally uploaded to TikTok by the security guard in the video, Luis de Alvarez, who took it down soon after, utterly traumatized by the entire event. He was working as a night guard and was alone patrolling a floor he was on when he spotted an old lady. We watch as he walks over to who he believes is a person, although we can't see anyone but him in the footage. He begins talking to what he later described as an old lady who was saying she was lost. But another guard tells him over his walkie-talkie that there's nobody there. He's the only one on the floor. The guard was waiting for the elevator, but decided to just leg it out of there as fast as he could. We cut to another angle and he's like running through the parking lot and then just out of the building completely. Ran halfway across the city, I'm sure. Number 5, night shift. Oh boy, working alone at night in a big empty building. Just the thought of that sends shivers down my spine. In this story posted to Reddit by True Denter, they described their encounter with a man who seemingly disappeared into thin air. I used to work at a place which was required to be manned 24 hours a day. Anyways, security is kinda tight. Bars on windows, multiple locked doors to get to where I am. They would give me work to do during the night, but underestimated how quickly I could get it done. So now it's getting to be the last third of my shift when all of a sudden I hear a door close. I look at the security camera and see someone walking down a hall towards my room. First I thought it was just somebody that came in ridiculously early, so I turn around and wait for them to come in, but nobody came in, and the hairs start rising on my back. Now this isn't a really big building, so I figure I'll find the guy wherever he is. I start checking offices and storage rooms, but come up empty-handed. However, I do see that a fire door had shut. I go to try and rewind the camera, but the digital recording is password protected and I don't know the password. Anyways, the whole thing freaked me out. The way the person was walking down the hallway, like a determined walk right to where I was. So I sit with my spine tingling for the last couple hours of my shift, and finally people start coming in. My replacement shows up and I tell her what I saw, and at this point I figure I must have imagined the whole thing. I'm told to go home and the manager and the girl who replaced me would look over the camera. After getting home, I call my manager and ask what was on the camera. So they said that the video showed the fire door closing, but then the video froze for about an hour. The next thing it records is me reopening the door. Next up we have Sun's Ghost. In 2019, a woman named Jennifer Hodge received an alert on her phone from her Nest Cam, which detects movement and sound, reading, "Take a look. Your entryway camera spotted a person." She'd been watching TV with her daughter and was about to fall asleep when she got this notification. They looked at the image and it showed what looked to be a ghostly figure standing in their kitchen. Her daughter immediately said, "Mom, look, it looks like Robbie." Robbie was her brother and Jennifer's son, who had passed passed away 2 years earlier. But they both agreed that the figure in the photo captured by the camera did look exactly like Robbie. They immediately ran to the kitchen, but there was nobody there, and no signs of forced entry either. Hodge described feeling comforted by the situation though, saying, "I felt like he was letting me know he's happy in heaven." Number 3, the bike. This is another story posted to Reddit by user TJS252 who wrote the following. I used to have an apartment pretty close to my office. The office building was kind of on its own relative to the city's commercial district. I sold the apartment, and before moving into my new home, I left my bicycle chained to the building's bike rack. It was only to be there for a few days and at no man's land before I was able to move it into my new place. Anyway, one day in the middle of the week, I come into the office, walk past the bike rack, and notice it's completely empty. The building has a bunch of security cameras, and one more or less is facing the bike rack. I sit and watch the security tape with the IT guy. We're watching, see everyone leave the office the night before, see the bike, keep watching, then all of a sudden, poof, bike gone. We slowed the tape down, and it seemed like when you're watching a digital cable or satellite and the image gets garbled, literally it was bike there, then poof, gone. And the tape's timestamp, it literally happened in 1 second. I assume my bike got taken down to the upside down. Coming at number 2, we have the ghost attack. Here we see a security camera footage that looks to be coming from an office or apartment building. We see this guy walking down the hallway when all of a sudden something sends him flying back to the floor. You can see a very obvious dark shadowy shape appear, which then begins dragging the dude down the hallway by the leg. Luckily it doesn't drag him very far before disappearing though, and the man, now free from the mysterious entity's grasp, stumbles to his feet and starts booking it back the way he came. Whatever friend he was seeing, appointment he had booked, whatever it wasn't happening that day. Being violently dragged down a hallway by a shadowy entity kinda has a way of disrupting your plans for the day, I reckon. Now as to whether this video is real or not, let me know what you think. I think it's a well done video, but yeah, I'm just not sold on the whole ghost thing yet. I wanna be though. And finally, we have the nursing home specter. A security guard named Jay Brown was working the night shift at a nursing home in Chicago when he spotted some sort of ghostly figure floating past the front desk. In this video, he's watching back at the security camera footage as he films, talking about what he saw. If you look closely at the footage, you actually see some sort of misty shape floating around in the corner. You watch as Brown stands up, confused and terrified as to what he's witnessing. At one point, he even throws a book at the ghostly mass, but then he decides to just take a deep breath, calm down, and get on with his shift. You know, stuff happens at work. Rude patients, long hours, sometimes there's a ghost in the corner, you gotta whip a book up and then just get on with your day. Brown stated that whatever the strange entity is, it seems to show up every few months. And we're kicking off this list with the ghost patient. In this security camera footage from a hospital in Argentina, we see a security guard sitting at his desk. It's late and there's nobody else in the foyer aside from the guard. At least that's what the way it looks to us. We watch as the automatic doors open, as if someone is entering into the hospital. Only there's nobody actually there. Or is there? The security guard seems to think there is, because he gets up from his desk and walks over to check this invisible person in. We watch him talk to what looks like thin air before allowing whoever or whatever it is inside. The guard later said that he had seen a woman walk into the hospital. She said she'd left something in the room she'd been staying in. The staff were of course pretty creeped out by the footage, especially when it was discovered that the name he'd taken down when letting the invisible entity into the hospital was the same name as a woman who had died just the previous day. Coming in at number 9, we have Miss Abigail. In this footage taken in a building in Houston, Texas, we see a security guard once again having a conversation with what looks like thin air. His coworker watching the cameras is filming her screen, completely confused by what she's seeing. Then she radios in to the guard asking like who he's talking to. He responds by saying he's speaking with Miss Abigail, who's looking for Mr. Griffin. The coworker becomes even more confused now email saying, "Sure you're saying Miss Abigail? She died 2 years ago." She then goes on to say that there's nobody in the hallway with him. Suddenly it sinks in for the guard and he turns around and starts running down the hallway. Fair enough, that would probably be my reaction as well. Even if this is just a hoax, it's such a creepy idea. Imagine having what you think is just some innocuous conversation with somebody, only to be told, hey bud, nobody there with you. I also have this haunting image in my mind of how this supposed ghost looked once the guard was told he wasn't talking to anyone. Did Miss Abigail disappear? Or even creepier, and what I'm kind of picturing is that she just stood there completely still, like staring blankly at him until he ran away. Next on the list we have the poltergeist. In the security footage captured in a 200-year-old school in Cork Island called Deer Park CBS, we see a series of paranormal phenomena take place. First, a door at the end of the hallway seemingly opens on its own before violently slamming shut. Then a filing cabinet or locker starts rocking back and forth out of nowhere. One of the lockers opens up and papers start flying out on their own. A wet floor sign suddenly flips out. I don't know, it spins around and collapses. Whatever was causing this to happen was not in a good mood that night.
Number 7. The Tunguska Incident. The Tunguska Incident was an approximately 12 megaton explosion that occurred near the Tuska River in Russia on the morning of June 30th, 1908. A massive fireball dashed to the ground before exploding about 6 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and this explosion slaughtered a lot of animals and completely crushed the surrounding forest. It even sent a hot shockwave for miles. Now, some scientists believe that the fireball was an asteroid. However, the biggest mystery in this event was that the massive explosion left no crater and no meteor material that can be found to be examined. Others say that the object which blasted into the sky was composed of ice, and that's why it left no debris, and the Tunguska event is the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history, though much larger impacts occurred in prehistoric times. An explosion of this magnitude would be capable of destroying a large metropolitan area. It has been mentioned numerous times in popular culture and has also inspired real-world discussion of asteroid impact avoidance. Number 6. The Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights were a series of widely sighted unidentified flying objects observed in the sky over the southwestern states of Arizona and Nevada on March 13, 1997. Lights of varying descriptions were seen by thousands of people between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. in a space of about 300 miles from the Nevada line, Phoenix, to the edge of Tucson. Some witnesses described seeing what appeared to be a huge Carpenter square-shaped UFO containing 5 spherical lights. There were 2 distinct events involved in the incident: a triangular formation of lights seen to pass over the state, and a series of stationary lights seen in the Phoenix area. Now, this wasn't the only time the lights were seen there, as many reports of strange lights over the state in 2007 and 2008 also happened. This event has since become one of the most notorious UFO sightings in history. Number 5. Skyquakes. I didn't even know that skyquakes were a thing, so for those of you who don't know, skyquakes are mysterious booms from the sky, but are not thunder, and they are heard all over the world. The mysterious booms sound like cannon fire rumbling down from the sky. Now, they are commonly heard near water, occasionally rattling windows and plates. Now, some have been explained by military aircraft breaking the sound barrier, but that doesn't account for reports of skywakes heard as far back as 1824. Now, scientists have come up with a few likely causes. Near coasts, the booms may be caused by enormous waves crashing against cliffs. Sand dunes are also capable, through unexplained mechanisms, of producing sounds, including on rare occasions large booms. Other options are meteors generating sonic booms as they speed into the atmosphere, shock waves caused by coronal mass ejections from the sun smashing into the Earth's magnetic field, distant volcano eruptions, far-off thunder redirected through the upper atmosphere, deep earthquakes making noises by cracking the crust, and gas belching up from underground vents beneath the ocean or lake beds. But the fact that it could be so many things without a definite answer is freaky. Number 4. The Belgian UFO Wave. The Belgian UFO wave began in November 1989. Reports were filed many weeks after the event. Now, many of the reports related a large object flying at low altitude. Some reports also stated that the craft was a flat, triangular shape with lights underneath. The Belgian UFO wave peaked with the events of the night of March 30th to 31st, 1990. On that night, one unknown object was tracked on radar, and 2 Belgian Air Force F-16s were sent to investigate, with neither pilot reporting seeing the object. object. No reports were received from the public on that date, but over the next 2 weeks, reports from 143 people who claimed to have witnessed the object were received, all of them after the event. Over the ensuing months, many others claimed to have witnessed these events as well. Following the incident, the Belgian Air Force released a report detailing the events of that night. Members of the Waiver Gendarmerie who had been sent to confirm the original report described 4 lights now being arranged in a square formation, all making short jerky movements before gradually losing their luminosity and disappearing in 4 separate directions at around 1:30 a.m. Number 3. Forest Grove Sound. In 2016, a high-pitched noise was heard intermittently at night in Forest Grove, Oregon. The Department of Forestry determined that their equipment was not the cause of the sound, and the Washington Post described the noise as sounding like a giant flute playing off-pitch, car brakes, or a steam whistle. NBC News described it as akin to a bad one-note violin solo broadcast over a microphone with non-stop feedback. It reportedly lasted from 10 seconds to several minutes at a time. The noise occurred near Gales Creek Road. Neither the City of Forest Grove Public Works Department nor the fire department were able to explain the noise. According to NW Natural, there were no problems with gas lines in the Forest Grove at the time. In February 2016, Andrew Dawes, a professor of physics at Pacific University, mapped the locations where the noise had been heard, although the results were inconclusive and did not suggest a single location. Throughout February 2016, approximately 200 calls were made to the Forest Grove Police Department, according to Captain Mike Herb, who said that most of the calls were suggesting explanations for the sound, ranging from frogs to aliens to Bigfoot. In late February 2016, the Forest Grove Police Department announced via Facebook that the noise did not pose a safety hazard, and that the police announced that they were halting their investigation until further information appeared. However, after February 2016, the noise was not heard again. Number 2. UFO Photograph. A photo taken in St. Paris, Champaign County in 1932 is considered one of the earliest possible photographs of a UFO ever recorded. It shows George Sutton, a local resident, and what appears to be a classic UFO-shaped object over his left shoulder. Skeptics say the object is simply a street lamp, but according to the folklore that surrounds this image, there were no electric streetlights along this road in 1932, nor are any wires or poles visible in the image. The photo is also intriguing because it predates the flying saucer craze of the late 1940s and 50s. It was taken before the alleged Roswell UFO crash in 1947 and 6 years prior to the broadcast of the War of the Worlds in 1938, when some people believed that aliens were attacking Earth. In other words, the person who took this photograph either captured a street lamp, a real UFO, or was way ahead of the curve in terms of pulling a good hoax. But I'd like to think it's a real UFO. And coming in at number 1 is Marfa Lights. Yellow orbs like lamp-lit basketballs hover and twinkle and at times gyrate over the shrubby high desert ground in the shadows of the Chinandé Mountains. They appear in the darkness south of US 90 between Alpine and Marfa. Journalist Michael Hall wrote about seeing the Marfa lights in a June 2006 story in Texas Month. Yellowish white lights that glowed, faded, disappeared, and returned in different places. Sometimes they changed colors, other times they split apart. I couldn't tell if they were 10 miles away or 100, the size of a car or a house. Now just about everyone in Marfa and many who have visited have a story like that. Now no one really knows the answer to these lights, but some believe it is the ghost of Apache Chief Alasti who allegedly haunts the area. Other claims it's space aliens trying to contact us or the ghosts of Spanish conquistadors.